But the basic premise, the foundation of our criminal justice systems across all the jurisdictions that I've been in is that you're innocent until proven guilty. And just because you're charged with a criminal offense does not mean that you're guilty.
Welcome back to another episode of the Superlawyer YouTube channel. Today, we are delighted to welcome Yuvika Johri ma'am. Ma'am is a partner at Neuberger Partners, LLP, and a dedicated criminal defense lawyer. She has a deep experience in handling matters across United States, Canada, and India. Holding a Juris Doctor, an LLM in criminal law, she is duly licensed to practice in Ontario and India, bringing with her a powerful blend of courtroom expertise, academic distinction, and cross-border legal perspective. From representing low-income individuals in felony cases to handling high-profile criminal matters, she continues to advocate fiercely for justice and the right of marginalized. We welcome you today, ma'am. My name is Anshi, and I work as an associate at the Superlawyer. At Superlawyer, we showcase inspiring journeys of legal professionals offering valuable insights that greatly motivate and benefit our readers, which are young lawyers and the legal community at large. I'd request Divya ma'am to now please continue with the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Anshi. It's a pleasure to meet you as well.
An absolute pleasure to host you today. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Divya Divedi. I host this Superlawyer YouTube channel and I am the team lead of Superlawyer as well. It's an immense pleasure to interact with a dual qualified lawyer. And not delaying the interview, I would now start with the very first question, that what was the motivation behind going internationally and doing that international law practice? Was this always your vision, or did you evolve your interest while you were having qualifications in India as well as internationally? And most importantly, why criminal law?
A lot of questions together, but the first one I want to address is thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here. What got me interested in studying further? I'll be honest, I did not wish to study further when I started my BA LLB program. I did not. It was a 5 years program. I was at Symbiosis Law School, and the 5 years in itself seems such a long journey. So when I started, I was content with, I'm just going to finish this degree and I'm going to just start working in Mumbai. But as I reached my 3rd year of law school, that was when I started my first internship. And I worked with advocate Satish Manishan. He was my mentor at the time, still is. It was very different to get practical exposure. And it's a step away from theoretical concepts that you learn in school. So you start learning criminal law. Yes, it intrigued my interest and piqued my interest. But when I started going to court, I started getting introduced to criminal law for the first time practically. That's when I was like, yep, this is what I want to do. I was in different paths in relation to practices that I wanted to do, intellectual. It was when I saw criminal law, I realized that it's a very humanizing experience very fast because it's so easy to be on the other side of the fence. When you meet individuals from different backgrounds, very early on, I realized that there are individuals who are wrongfully accused in the justice system. There are individuals who are found at the wrong place at the wrong time. You know, there are innocent individuals as well who are wrongfully charged. So all of this experience came to me very early on as a law student. So that piqued my interest in criminal law. I decided that, look, this is the path I want to take. And you need to study further. I needed to learn more. So even though I did the 5 years and all the courses that were offered to me in my undergrad, I decided that I need to study more, get some more experience in this area, learn how evidence law works, how justice system works in different countries. It just happened. So during my 5th year of law school, I believe, is when I started applying to law schools abroad. And funny enough, I met my husband at the same time, who was also going abroad to study in the United States. So it was a little bit of a combination of everything as to why I decided to go abroad, why I decided to study further. Yeah, and I just wanted to challenge myself. It was funny, and my mother still laughs, still did, because I told her, I don't wish to study more. And now I'm studying for the rest of my life because this is what I do. So, so my mother, you know, although she's a very proud parent that, okay, she studied so much, but at the same time, yes, it took a while to get to the position at where I am. And you have to study, you have to do what it takes, you have to put in the work. So you have to go through the fire, essentially. So a mixture of everything just got me abroad.
Wow, absolutely humanizing experience you have had. Coming to that particular aspect, I
Right.
would request you to elaborate a little bit more on this criminal justice system and the kind of humanizing experience you had, because of which you decided to excel in this, you want to practice this, and you are already practicing this for so many years. Why I'm asking is if you could elaborate it in perspective of psychology and the kind of thought process that gets into it as a lawyer, and when you are listening to those stories or those people who are nowhere near the justice part that we talk about. So I'll request you to shed some light on that aspect, how and what you do and what you see first in order to make sure that, first of all, they are given that particular feeling that we are there to support you, and then you move forward with the case. How do you do that?
So here's the thing. I think there's a lot of misconception out there in the world. I do come across individuals who get surprised at what I do, and they're like, oh, I would never represent a criminal. But the basic premise, the foundation of our criminal justice systems across all the jurisdictions that I've been in is that you're innocent until proven guilty. And just because you're charged with a criminal offense does not mean that you're guilty. And a lot of individuals don't recognize that or realize that because, we've seen in our practice you lose a lot by just getting charged with a criminal offense. So, for example, I have had clients who've been charged with, let's say, sexual assault. You get fired from your job. Your spouses or your relationships do not work. People want to leave you. Your support systems not necessarily are there. People find it very like a stigma. They don't wish to be associated with you. I've seen banks, for example, in Canada saying, oh, you're charged with really horrible crimes. We don't wish to do business with you. Professional licenses. If you are a doctor, a lawyer, professional injury, whatever you may be, people lose all of that. So there's a lot that you already lose. By the time you get to your trial, where you're trying to prove, it's sad that to say that you're trying to prove because the burden is the other way. The Crown has to prove, the state has to prove that you're guilty of the criminal offense. But there is a power imbalance in the criminal justice system from time to time. We do see that. And a lot of individuals don't recognize that. There's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes when you're a criminal defense lawyer. We are not just a lawyer, but sometimes we are the only individuals that our clients can speak with because you cannot speak to anybody as openly as you can speak with us. Sometimes we are therapists. People are going through a lot of anxiety. They don't know what to expect. And I always tell my clients, knowledge helps. Knowledge is what will help you keep your anxiety at bay. You're not able to sleep at night because you do not know what to expect. And as a lawyer, it's my job to not just represent you, but also to educate you as to what's going to happen next. And that's something that I learned when I was in the US, when I was in Canada. You have to always keep your clients informed. You always have to take instructions from your clients. But there are a lot of roles that we're doing at the same time, not just as a lawyer. Surely things are changing. There's a lot of information out there. People are starting to realize that just because somebody's charged with a criminal offense does not mean that they're guilty of the offense. So that's good to see. But it's still an uphill battle. It's not just specific to one jurisdiction like it's in India, but it's all over the world, to be honest with you.
I'll continue on this aspect of international jurisdictions. There are different jurisdictions where you have practiced, and you are currently also working. And you were in US, and then right now you're in Canada, and you have practiced in India as well. Now, I would request you to shed some light on this aspect, that how different are these jurisdictions, although all of them follow common law only, but there must be something which you have seen differently, working in India, working in US, working in Canada, the kind of clients or the way the court behaves or the way the clients behave, the way the justice system works. If you could just share some insights that you may have gone through, and how did you flawlessly transition from having that Indian criminal justice system mindset to US to Canada, and now you are an international criminal justice lawyer? Please do shed some light.
I have to say, it involved a lot of unlearning concepts and learning new concepts because I'm jumping from different jurisdictions. And you obviously take things from where you're coming from, but you also have to make space to learn the new things that you're going into. So that was something that I had to do. When I moved to the US, I had to learn how the US criminal justice system works, how the state justice system works, how the federal works. Then I moved to Canada. And then in Canada, I'm like, okay, there's this whole different jurisdiction, how provincial system works and federal system works. So yes, there was a lot of unlearning and learning involved in moving these three jurisdictions. But Substantively, because these three countries are common law jurisdictions. So substantively, the laws, I found them to be very similar. You have to prove the actus reus and the mens rea in order to prove the criminal offense has taken place. But procedurally, I found things to be very different. So, for example, in the US, you do get jury trials. In Canada, you don't necessarily get jury trials unless and until the Crown is proceeding a certain way. I'm not sure if it's still the same. What I learned was if you are facing jail time more than 6 months, you do qualify to have a jury trial in the US. At least in Atlanta, that's where I did my Juris Doctor. In the state of Georgia, that was the situation. And you have to understand in US, criminal law is very specific to states. So, for example, you do have Canada that has a criminal code that we live by. In India, you had the Indian Penal Code, which recently has been changed. So we had this one law across the country, but in the US, it was very different because in the US, states are allowed to legislate on criminal law. So, for example, if you have California imposing 10 years for robbery, that not may necessarily be the case in the state of Florida. And when it comes to jury trials, you don't necessarily have jury trials in Canada for each and every offense. If the Crown is proceeding by indictment, I'll give you an example just to make it easy. So let's say you have a criminal offense back in 1970, okay? And the Crown, the prosecutors are addressed as the Crown attorneys here in Canada. So if they wish to prosecute that offense to go back in time, they have to proceed by indictment. But if they're proceeding by indictment, you as the accused, you have the right to choose to go to a higher court and do a jury trial, get your case before a jury. But that's not necessarily the case if the Crown is proceeding summarily, because in summarily, you're just facing jail up to 2 years less a day. That's Canada. US is different. And India, as we all know, is very different as well. So when I came to the US, I knew that I was walking into a jurisdiction that did jury trials. I did meet individuals who specialize in just reading how juries react, what a juror may be thinking. Yeah, it's fascinating. As a criminal defense lawyer, when I was a student, I was intrigued to see that there are these studies that happen before a criminal defense lawyer some lawyers actually do that in the US, before they take a case to the jury. They do a sample trial, mock trial, jury trial before a bunch of people, and they see what the jury is going to think. So all of that is very different, very intriguing. And yeah, it involved learning and a lot of unlearning from my side.
Wow, what a fascinating summary about that. You have also worked both as a legal fellow with the Office of Public Defender in Atlanta, as well as a research associate at the Center for Human Rights and Constitutional Laws in LA, where you actually help secure a presidential pardon in a case.
Right.
How did these distinct roles, one specific to courtroom litigation, another one human rights advocacy, oh my God, shape your understanding about the justice and the legal reforms, which is unforeseen in Indian legal system? Absolutely contrast to what we learn here. How did you
Right.
do that unlearning and relearning, and how did you secure that particular pardon?
Actually, I think these two experiences, they really assisted in making me who I am today. And I was with the Center of Human Rights. I was a student at the time. I had just graduated from my LLM program and I had a great mentor who sadly passed away last year, Mr. Peter Shea. He was the one who was leading the organization. He essentially had a great interest in policy reform work. And one of the projects that I was working was on California prisoners in solitary confinement, reading and learning about the policy involved in their experiences and how people are being treated in the prison system. Solitary confinement is bad, as we all know it. These individuals were, or rather, what I learned at the time was individuals are spending 23 hours in a day in solitary confinement and they get 1 hour of sunlight. So, how they're treated, how the human experience was, and how bad it is, all of that actually helped me when I was a fellow at the PD's office because as a public defender, you're representing individuals, grassroots level, you start, whatever comes through the door, you're representing individuals. Everybody has a right to counsel. So I was exposed to meeting individuals. When I came from the Center of Human Rights, I went to the PD's office. I came with that knowledge that it can get really bad. It can get really bad for individuals. We live our simple lives and we sometimes forget that there is bad in the world as well. People are suffering at the end of the day. It does not matter what the person is convicted of or is guilty of. At the end of the day, everyone deserves due process in the criminal justice system. So when I moved over to the PD's office, It helped me empathize. I think I would say I developed compassion coming from where I came from. In relation to the terrorism case, this was just my small little role in preparing clemency petitions and assisting my supervising lawyers in doing what they're doing. But it just feels great to be able to secure freedom for somebody else who has been in the prison system for so long. And we have something very similar in Canada as well. There's Innocence Canada in Canada, where really great senior lawyers are doing good work, who are reopening cases from long ago and looking that there was some sort of error in the trial, error in the way the case was handled, and securing innocence for those people. So, yes, there are individuals who are unfortunately in our jails, who are incarcerated for things that they haven't done, or who were caught wrong place, wrong time, like I say, or who are not given the due process that they should be given. So I think all of that together, my experience has really helped me now, because when I see clients come into my office, I know what we're dealing with. I know the severity of the situation. I know how bad it can get. In the United States, for example, you still have the death penalty in some of the states, and you don't have that in Canada. It's abolished. So when you are practicing for a while and you're doing criminal defense, you realize, and this is what I mean, the humanizing experience. You start empathizing, you realize that it can be anyone. It can be your brother, your father, your husband, your spouse, anybody in your family who can be on the other side of the fence. And that's why we do what we do. And that's why I do what I do.
My God, I just cannot imagine what you may have been going through, but I'll definitely ask this. Doesn't it take a toll when you go through all this for any other person? You are their attorney, you are working with them, you're learning their experiences. How do you keep your mental health in check when you are going through all this process for so long? You are meeting variety of people who are suffering inside the bars and solitary confinement, as you said. How do you keep yourself intact, sane, and be available to other clients and to your family as well? How do you do that?
It takes a village. Let me just put it that way. So it's never you yourself alone doing everything, right? When you start, and I can speak from personal experience, when you start practicing as a lawyer, and this may resonate with a lot of junior lawyers, when you're starting off, everything feels as though any little mistake and I'm going to lose everything. It happens. When you start, you're like, oh my God, I made this mistake. I'm going to lose my license. You have anxiety, you have nervousness. But for me, especially, I paint. I love painting. I always love painting, and I always took time out for myself to paint, channel, because you're spending a lot of time during the day dealing with other people's problems. Yes, you are surrounded by a lot of negativity. You're dealing with people fighting. I do a lot of domestic related situations, sexual offenses. And the whole day, that's what you hear day by day. It does sometimes take a toll on your mental health. And you're like, yeah, you know what? I wish to take a step back. And that's when I have a supportive family. I have two lovely dogs. My dogs really help me with my emotional needs. And yeah, you have to be able to ask help. You have to be able to go to your seniors. You have to be able to go to your colleagues. Your colleagues are really, everybody is struggling in some way or the other. You should be able to speak with your colleagues as well. So, for example, in our firm, and I know this is a culture in a lot of firms as well, there is this sense of collegiality. If I'm dealing with, and I don't know everything, there are days when I come across a legal issue and I think this is new, I don't know how to deal with this. I go to my colleagues and I said, hey, this has been bothering me for days. I don't know what defense is going to work here. And we guys speak about it, we talk about it, and this is a way to help each other out. So I think a lot of lawyers, young lawyers, need to seek mentorship. It's very important. Learn from individuals, and we can always learn from anybody. There are sometimes I speak with my fellow lawyers, the associates in the firm. You can learn something from anybody. So it's not just that, oh, somebody's a paralegal or someone is a clerk. No, no, no. I learned a lot from them. I learned a lot from them. When I was a student, I started learning from them. So take the time when needed. Number one, step away. Take your vacation time. Turn it off, turn the emails off. Learn to detach and switch off. And for other young lawyers, seek mentorship. Mentorship is very important. And if somebody, and not just for younger lawyers, I know there are a lot of younger lawyers who are seeking it. But I think a lot of older lawyers and senior lawyers need to be or should make themselves available to give that mentorship. Because I know I had mentors, I still do. There are still times when I call up my mentors and I'm like, hey, this issue is really bothering me. Can you help me out? That helps and it makes the job easier. Plus, your family, you have to have some support system. And that's what I do. I take the time out.
Wow. Easier said than done, but you are already doing it, and many of us are doing it because I feel it's a community thing. Like you said, it takes a village. It really takes a village to help you out of all of this. So while you were doing your clerkship with the Honorable Judge Jane S. Mayoran, you learned litigation from a judge's perspective. What
Right.
was different in that understanding and your understanding as an individual?
So when I was doing this, I believe I was still doing my LLM program in Minnesota. And this was a very unique experience because I was always so pro defense, everything defense, and always worked with criminal defense lawyers. You sometimes forget, yes, you are a zealous and advocate for your client. And you're going to fight for them. But at the end of the day, you also have to understand it's not the witness that you have to convince, it's the judge. Okay. It's the judge. So sometimes you forget that you get into this back and forth with the witness and you forget that it's not the witness, it's the judge. So these are some things that I did not know, and I learned it from a judge's perspective. They see everything. They look at you, not just your submissions, but also how are you otherwise. So I have seen clerks of the court speaking about how good a lawyer was with them when the judge was not presiding in the courtroom. And all of that, it really goes a long way because at the end of the day, it's not being kind and being nice. It should just come naturally to you. That's just a character of a person. But at the end of the day, it's also being professional and being courteous to other people in a courtroom, the court reporter, the bailiff, the clerks who are also working really hard. And I've seen judges notice how you address them, how you speak with them. If you're throwing attitude around in a courtroom, even during a trial, I have seen judges say, you may want to do this a certain way, do it that way. In today's world, the social media presence is very strong. Judges see everything, and I say that because I know judges are on social media platforms. They're on LinkedIn, they're on Twitter, which is X now. So if you're posting things, they're going to see it, and your reputation is very important. It takes a lifetime to build it, but you can lose it within seconds. So it's very important. I'm thankful that I had that experience because I got to learn so much from her. She explained that every time you're coming to a judge, you have to come obviously prepared. Questions are going to be thrown at you that you may not necessarily be anticipating, but if you have sufficient preparation, you should be able to answer it. It's how to write your materials. Every judge is different. And what may work in front of one judge may not necessarily work in front of the other judge. So, this perspective of how to be a good criminal defense lawyer, what may work when I'm doing my trials, how do I make sure that I'm being a fearless advocate for my client, but at the same time, I'm not pissing my judge off. Let me just put it that way. I'm not making them angry. This was a great experience for me to learn from them. And also because I'm sitting in the courtroom at the same time when she's presiding and she's seeing other counsels appearing before her. And it's a criminal case. And she sees how the assistant district attorney is behaving. She sees how the defense lawyers is behaving. And I can see what's making her angry or what is making her feel, okay, I really like this counsel. I really like the materials he prepared. I really like how he did blah, 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 blah. You catch up on these things and you try and put that in your own practice. So I would say it was a very privileged opportunity for me to be there.
Congratulations that you had that opportunity and we had the opportunity of learning it from you. It's absolutely fascinating. And the way you are explaining it brings a lot of questions
Memories.
in my head. But I'll restrict and I'll ask you, like, when you transitioned from India and you went and unlearned and relearned things, many a times as humans we have a tendency of thinking, okay, if I would have been there I would have been like this. Now I'm here, I'm like this. Now I want to transition from here for a better thing. Usually we plan for better only. So having that tendency, and I feel that almost all humans have that tendency, I'll request you to talk something about this aspect also, that when you're planning for something like LLM abroad, what perspective should be there in mind in terms of what cultural changes you will see, what demographic changes you'll see, how people see each other is also absolutely different from how we are nurtured here in India and how you see outside India, especially in developed countries. So how did you change that understanding about the cultural? Usually people say the shock that we get, but how did you transition from this cultural perspective that we have here to there and made it through the whole system? Like you said, you had amazing opportunities, and currently also you're working in a very nice law firm. So how did you made your head strong? How did you transition? How did you work your way through it? Please do let us know about it.
Absolutely. I'll say it was an uphill battle. It wasn't necessarily a breeze. So I'll start with the first thing. When you are thinking of moving abroad, you have to understand number one, what do you want to do? Are you planning to do an LLM or are you planning to do a JD? You mentioned earlier that you wanted to understand a little bit as to why I did my JD instead of just an LLM. I'll get to that. But here's the first thing that if you have a specialization in mind and that's all you want to pursue, sure, LLM is really good. You may want to look into universities that are offering you that specialization. So for me, it was University of Minnesota, Twin Cities. They had a great specialization course and not just like theoretical aspect of learning from criminal law 101, evidence law. That was not it. I did a lot of practical work as well while I was in law school, apart from the internships. So there were courses that I took with judges, with other lawyers, in which they teach you how to present a case in front of a jury. I had no experience whatsoever in practicing in front of a jury or presenting any case in front of a jury. And I had these really big judges, chief judges, federal courts coming as professors and teaching us as to how to prepare a case, how to do all of that. So that was the practical experience that I got while in classroom and learning from these individuals who were practicing while we were in school. So when I was crafting my program, I thought that, look, this is what the courses I want to study. It gives me a wholesome experience of getting a specialization in criminal law. But then the reason why I moved towards doing a JD is because criminal defense is a very niche practice area. It's not tax, it's not immigration law, it's not intellectual property that you're working with really big companies. You're mostly working or looking at boutique law firms, with law firms who are like 4 or 5 lawyers, or like the Office of the Public Defenders, which is a huge organization depending on the county you're in. So, county is in Atlanta, you had 4 or 5 counties, all the PD's offices are different there. Their structure and how many lawyers they have is also very different. So for me, I wanted to do a Juris Doctor because I just wanted more experience. I wanted to learn more. I wanted to be able to market myself more because criminal law is so niche. You want to be able to say, yes, I have a Juris Doctor as well, and I've done the whole 3 year program. And again, that JD that I did, it was intensive. It was very different from the law school experience that I had in India because it was a Socratic method of teaching. And you have to understand the LLM program is also very different from the JD in the sense that in the LLM, you have individuals from all around the world, people who are already practicing. There are judges, there are lawyers, they just want to pursue their LLM, get the specialization, and go back. And there are individuals who do want to practice abroad. And JD is, at least for me, was a better option because it put me through fire. You have to read in advance of your classes. That was not something that I necessarily did when I was back in law school in India. You have to read because the professor is going to call on you. I'll tell you one example. Everybody had anxiety in this one course that we had. The professor would just walk in. We were around 80 to 100 students, and he would just write down the last names of 5 students he was going to call on. You did not know who he was going to call on. So you had to make sure that you've studied because he's not going to pass on. Even if you say, I'm sorry, I don't know. No, 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 no. Go back to your materials and I want to know. So the process involved in the training in the Juris Doctor that I did, it was very different. It was just an extension of what I did during my LLM. I did the courses, the practical ones, did all of that. So it was really helpful. So I think a lot of individuals who are planning to move abroad, you have to first see what jurisdiction you wish to go to. A lot of individuals go to the UK, a lot of individuals go to the US. That's one. Second would be what universities do you want to go to? Don't just go to any university. Go where you can utilize the resources available for you. And opportunities are not necessarily available. You have to create them. So there were times when I did not have the opportunities that you've read before this interview. Those opportunities did not necessarily exist. I kind of created them for myself and I networked. And networking is something very different that individuals that, I did not do any networking as such back in India. It is a very different concept. And when I came here, you have to go to these events and meet other lawyers. You can cold call upon lawyers, email them, say, hi, I wanted to speak with you about your practice. I'm trying to learn. Can we go out for coffee? Certain things are very different culture wise. And this was something that needed a little bit of adjusting for me when I came, because that was something that I was not used to back in India. And it's just become a part of what I do now. There were individuals who made time for me. So now I'm making time for other students, other young lawyers, or anybody who wishes to discuss whatever it may be that they need assistance with. So that is one thing that I dealt with. The other is punctuality. Punctuality is very important. It is very important abroad. It's considered impolite. If you say I'm going to be there at 10 o'clock and you reach at 11, especially in the court system, doesn't necessarily mean just the criminal justice system, in the courts as well. Deadlines are very important. You have to adhere to the deadlines because there are consequences to not adhering to a deadline. You don't want a judge to say, nope, this was not properly filed, because then your client is going to get angry. So certain things that we take for granted sometimes back home or has not necessarily been part of our experience, we have to be able to adhere to that. Adaptability was very important, how to unlearn and relearn and how to adapt to your new environment. I think can be a challenge for individuals, but you have to go through it, you have to do it, and only once you do it will you be able to be good at what you do. I hope I hit some of the notes that you were hoping. If I didn't, please feel free to ask me more.
No, thank you so much. You actually have given such beautiful pointers of networking, adaptability, and especially punctuality, which usually is unusual norm in India. But thank you so much for bringing in such beautiful ways of explaining things and the way you have learned, unlearned, and relearned in US and Canada as well. It has been an amazing experience, and thanks for being here for this conversation. I do understand there is a lot of work that goes around, and you have been a very busy person, but it is my pleasure that we were able to interview you, and it is Superlawyer's pleasure that our learners will be able to understand how and what ways they should move ahead before they are planning an international career, because there are many, many aspects which you have to go through, not only family and your aspects, but yes, cultural and demographic and other aspects as well. It has been a beautiful pleasure, and thanks, Yuvika, for being here and for giving us time. Thanks a lot.
No, the pleasure is all mine. Thank you very much for having me. This is really fun.